to the video that I just finished recording, so this is kind of weird for me. The idea with this intro was that I was going to do the Paladin class challenge, which proved before to be extremely difficult. In fact, I have about 2 hours of recorded footage of me doing it on the day that it came out, of me just absolutely not being able to do the challenge because the deck that they gave you in that challenge to begin with sucked so badly. That deck was terrible. There was no reason for the deck to be that bad. They could have made that deck so much better than they did, and they just did a horrible job at making the deck. Some people did that challenge then, that way. I did some research. I came into making this video prepared for the worst for another 2 hours of failing, because that's apparently what it takes to do the old Paladin challenge. To my surprise and to my great pleasure, I found that they had changed the deck for the Paladin challenge since the last time I attempted it. And with that new deck, I did it on the second try. I probably actually could have done it on the first try if I knew what the deck was. Yeah, they changed the deck design that much and made it so much better. You guys will only see the second attempt because I split them into different videos, and there's no reason for you to see, waste 5-10 minutes of your life watching me fail at a Paladin challenge that I did the next time. So yes, you do know that. Hey, so as you can see from that, this is another starting of an attempt. So as I will probably mention in my intro, they've changed the deck since the 2 hours of stupidity that I had. So yeah, let's try it again. This is my second attempt with the new deck, but I will say that the new deck was significantly better. And I came pretty close to actually being able to win. Yeah, it's actually a now half decent deck rather than the stupidity. This is actually a pretty good stand, so yeah. Avenge turn 1, echoing ooze, and then he kills an ooze, and I get a, what does that end up being? 4-3? Not bad. So yeah, this deck is definitely a lot different from the first iteration of this challenge deck, because the first iteration of the challenge deck was just stupid. Just the deck design didn't even make sense. Alright, I can ignore the gargoyle. Sure. Do I want a code? I do kind of want a code, but no. I just need to rush him down a little bit faster this time around. Like, outdooring that is probably pretty good. Follow the rules. And just face. What happened last time was I got a gigantic ooze that he just kept freezing, which was the annoying part of that. No, it's a 4-4. Alright. Play another Avenge.
We must
Shattered Sun on that one. And I can just keep ignoring the stupidity of the gargoyle. Sure, it keeps healing, and he's managed to get some good value out of it, but... Good target for that. Ooh, Sword of Justice. Right, so if I buff this one, it'll be up at 5, so it actually won't die to that. I do need to kill this thing. Alright. Yeah, sure.
Reporting for duty.
That thing is being annoying enough that... And now that is what I call board control. And he's gonna freeze my 8-1. Do I just want to pop his bubble thingy?
Reporting for
Push
duty.
forward.
No! Your turn is over! My turn now!
Alright.
Be free, my minions!
And he freezes the 8-1 again! A second Sword of Justice, nice. I think Consecration is worth it here.
To battle!
And I think actually using a charge of the axe here is worth it to be able to kill that thing.
Reporting for duty.
Push forward.
And then that goes to the face. I really should use this Blessing of Wisdom here soon. I don't know why it's been sitting in my hand for this long.
Let the pain speak to me.
Ooh, Blessing of Kings. Put everything on one minion? Sure, why not?
Push forward.
This ought to be interesting.
To battle!
I want the second... No, I'd rather have a 2-2.
Reporting for duty.
Yep. And Twisting Nether. On his side. Or Blizzard is just as annoying.
Stand ready.
He got them all to 1. Huh. Sure, why not? Might have been worth considering hitting him with the sword there.
Some still fun.
Oh my god, why?
The damned stand ready. Reporting for duty.
now does not work. Should I hit him with the sword? Screw it.
For justice.
Sword of Justice plus Slime is actually pretty good. Yay! Victory! Cool. So, I initially had some disappointing thoughts about Nax, but since it ends with a pretty good, you know, this class challenge is actually not as stupid as it once was. We're good. Alright, so I got Avenge. Woohoo! I will be back to talk about finishing thoughts on Nax. Oh, it's good. No, you know what? I'm gonna do that now. Alright, finishing thoughts on Nax. And also decks that I have made using the Nax codes, because some of them are actually quite fun. So let's look at the Nax codes, shall we? Right, so finishing thoughts on Nax. Poison Seeds. Currently does not seem to have a use in, like, any deck. I don't know. It seems like it's a card that no one's explored. It seems like you could make a deck around it, but meh. Let's see. Hunters have become a major problem on ladder, in part because of the Web Spinner. It's a 1-mana 1/1 cycle, which, I mean, it's not really a cycle, it's more, you know, you do draw a random beast, but generally for Hunter, most of the beasts are pretty useful. And then there's those games that you draw one of the really good beasts, like an extra Savannah High Main, and you get, you know, the games where you get like 4 Savannah High Mains, and then you just win. Duplicate. Seeing some use, not seeing much use now because, well, Hunter and Flare. Same thing with the Paladin Secret. Paladin Secret, that is actually a pretty good secret in Arena, really. It might now be the best Paladin Secret in Arena. Dark Cultist is as amazing as everyone thought it would be. It is now pretty much an auto-include in all priest decks ever, and is a really good Arena pick. Anubar Ambusher. People thought that it would be good, some people did some experimenting with it, and it turns out to not be actually as good as people thought it was. Turns out that effect is just, it's just too bad. It's too much of a tempo loss to justify only having +1 attack, essentially. The problem with that, though, is if it was any bigger than +1 attack, over a Yeti, it would then be overpowered. Reincarnate. This card is so much fun. And I'll show you why. It's not good by itself, in any way. You'd, like, never pick this in Arena. But if you have a deck designed around it, it is amazing. Void Caller can be kind of fun. I've seen, you know, there's a couple zoo concepts out there with, you know, where you use this to get out your big guys, your big demons faster. Despite, well, if this gives you any indication, it's a better True Silver Champion. True Silver Champion is generally considered one of the best cards in the game. This card is really, really good. That Whirlwind effect is generally more useful for Warrior than the 2 heal is from, than the effective 4 heal the True Silver Champion provides. Yeah, it's good. It's a good card. Let's look at the neutrals. Undertaker, Zombie Chow, Echoing Ooze, Haunted Creeper, and Mad Scientist. I have a deck with everything in this row on this screen right now, I have a deck at the moment that's somewhat competitive that uses at least one of these cards. Except for the Nubar Weblord. That is the only card that I do not have in a deck at the moment. Undertaker, Zombie Chow, and Haunted Creeper are in my Zoo deck. With Zombie Chow also making its way into my Priest deck. Echoing Ooze is in my Token Druid. And Mad Scientist is in this Hunter deck. Nubian Egg is in my Zoo deck. I had it for a while in this Death Rattle Shaman, but it's no longer there. Unstable Ghoul is in this Death Rattle Shaman. So, my opinion on all those cards is that, yeah, they're all very, 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 very good. High quality. Dancing Swords. Deathlord has made it out of all my decks at the moment. I think it might make it back into my Priest deck if Zoo becomes more popular again. You know, if it becomes a Zoo meta instead of the Hunter meta. Because this card is bad in the Hunter meta, but good in the Zoo meta, essentially. Shade of Nax. This is a card that I think you can build a deck around. I don't have one at the moment, but I think you could, you know, put this in a Control Warrior deck or something, maybe. Something like that. I've heard of, you know, OTK, well, kind of OTK Shaman decks, where you get this card and let it sit there for a while and then put Wind Fury on it, and it becomes a monster. Yeah, it works. Stonestin Gargoyle. Horrible, horrible, horrible card. This card is up there with, the likes of Kidnapper, or, Totemic Call, or, this card is just horrible and should never be used in any deck ever as it stands. There is no use for it. Even the combos with it just aren't good. Yeah, no, just no. Baron Riverdale is maybe not the best card out there, and maybe not the most viable card in a competitive deck, but it is sure a fun card. There's so many cool Death Rattles that you can trigger with this one. Some of them, though, you know, Death Lord plus Vivian Dare is, you know, a bad combination. Wailing Soul. I feel like this was put into the game specifically to give a tech code against Freeze Mage. The idea being that you could freeze off all of the freeze effects on all of your minions, and then be able to go in and hit them if they, like, Frost Nova'd you. So this could be very good in specific kinds of Zoo decks that are made to counter, Freeze Mage. Like, that would actually be a good card to put in a Zoo deck that doesn't have all the Death Rattle stuff. You could put this in a Zoo deck that's more the traditional, more of the pre-Nax Zoo, where this just fits in somewhere. Loetheb is a very, very, very good card. Depending on the deck. Fugan has also made it into two of my decks at the moment. It's in my Priest and my Shaman at the moment. I'm not entirely convinced of it in my Priest yet. It is so much fun in the Shaman, though. And in fact, the Shaman is the next deck I'm going to show you. Sludge Belcher is probably the card that people will tell you surprised them the most. When you look at it, it's a 5-mana 4/3 that summons the 1/2 taunt, right? So it's essentially the mana of a Senjin plus a Goldshire Footman in the same card. Which, that's the key part of it, is it's one card that normally costs 2 cards. Right? It's one pretty good card, even. You know, one extremely good, you know, potentially even extremely good card. You know, one of the best taunt minions in the game, really. That then has one of the, you know, mediocre taunt cards rolled into the same card effect for the same amount of mana. It's really good. The Sludge Belcher is also set up in such a way that the enemy can't help but overkill it in many situations. Not to mention this thing, if you can get Sludge Belcher and Kel'Thuzad on the same board, and if the enemy does not have Polymorph or Hex, right? So if it's a class that doesn't even have either of those two, you just win. Like, and then, you know, you'd get the occasional Warrior Execute on the Kel'Thuzad kind of thing. But even that, I found that you generally just win. Stalag is a good one to go along with the Fugan. Of course, you know, its effect and all. But Fugan is definitely the better card of the two and more useful of the card. However, I will say it is pretty nice to, if you can, summon Fugan first and then summon Stalag. Because the Fugan, you can get some good trades out of it. You can get some 2-for-1s out of it. And then, when it dies and they see the Stalag, they're like, well, crap, I don't want to kill this 7-mana minion, the 7-attack minion anymore because, well, I'll just give him an 11/11. You know? It's pretty good. Kel'Thuzad has actually been quite good. The only other 8-mana minion that he competes with is, as far as, like, a deck slot. You know, he's a very easy, like, comparison to something like Ragnaros, right? Ragnaros' effect is much better, and also in one of my deck, he's also comparable to Cenarius, because, well, that's my Druid deck, and I'm still not entirely sure which... the situations where Kel'Thuzad and Cenarius are different, I mean, it really is just, you know, almost preference. Like, they both fit almost the same role, and, you know, one's slightly better in certain circumstances, and one's slightly better in other circumstances. I'm really thinking about adding the Cenarius back simply because it is more flexible than the Kel'Thuzad. Whereas the Kel'Thuzad has less situations where he's as good, but when he is really good, he is incredibly good. Whereas the Cenarius is, at most, you know, just a big creature. You know, either way that you look at him, he's just a big creature. Right? Either option that you choose. Which is still useful and good, but, you know, the Kel'Thuzad can sometimes offer a little bit more than that, but the Cenarius is consistently a bigger creature. And you do get a choice with him to, you know, help your own minions or... yeah, whatever. Why am I going to that one first? I don't know why I'm going to that one first. Let's look at the Death Rattle Shaman, shall we? This is my new deck. So, Earthshock, Lockbiter, Ancestral Spirit, Reincarnate, Flame Tongue, Loot, Hoarder, Unstable Ghoul, Hex, Lightning Storms, Harvest Golems, Vandetide Totem, Rivendare, Leroy Jenkins. This is, I just recently pulled from a pack. This has been amazing in this deck. Fugan, Sludge Belcher, Stalag, Fire Elemental, Kel'Thuzad. This deck is so much fun to play. It is incredibly fun to play. It's a little bit slow. It will almost always win in the late game. It will out late game just about any deck out there. It also competes in burst damage to just about any deck out there. In fact, there's a really, really hilarious... I mean, you can do, you know, 24 damage in a turn with Leroy Jenkins pretty easily. Well, I say easily. It's 2x Ancestral Spirits plus a Reincarnate. But, when you think about it as well, the Reincarnate is a, essentially a, a Shadow Step when you play it on Leroy Jenkins that doesn't also give them the 1/1 whelps, unlike the Shadow Step, which sometimes, I'll admit, sometimes it is actually somewhat beneficial to give them the 1/1 whelps. But, this deck is so much fun. There's some other changes to consider. So, at the moment, I have these Unstable Ghouls in here. Those are just a recent addition over, Nerubian Eggs. Simply put, because this deck doesn't have enough way to activate the Nerubian Eggs, with the way that I built this deck. This deck is mostly about survival until you can get the Kel'Thuzad out, and then you just win. um, like I said before, if you can get a, Sludge Belcher and Kel'Thuzad on the board at the same time, and they don't have a Polymorph or Hex or something, you're going to just win the game. It's actually kind of incredible. I've won from behind positions because, I just get massive burst damage with Leroy. I've gotten, 3 or 4, well, I think the most I've ever gotten was, 3, Thaddeus's on the field. Let's see, the Hex and there's no Lightning Bolt in this deck, which is a little bit weird. And I made sure that the Earthshock was in there instead of the Lightning Bolt because of the current meta with the Hunters and their Savannah Highmanes. And that's also why there's 2 Hexes in there. I found that these are just really good in the current meta. There's enough big cards out there that just, and enough Death Rattle stuff to silence, that Earthshock and Hex are both really good cards. Another consideration is maybe instead of Manatide Totem, if you look at the mana curve, it might be good to add another 4. And Cult Master and Acolyte of Pain are both considerations for card draw here. Cult Master might be pretty good. Sure. So, yeah, that's my random rambling about that deck. So, I mentioned that I made some changes. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and change this to Scenarios because I'm convinced that that is better at the moment. Alright. So, I took out a Claw and added in a Mark of the Wild and took out the 2 Haunted Creepers and put in the Echoing Oozes. These have been incredible additions to the deck. I also, and I'm still really on the fence about this one, took out the big, fat Jude of the Claws and put in the Sludge Belchers. Because, realistically, I just wanted better taunt instead of the charging ability. Because, realistically, these are better for taunting. I don't know. This deck is just as solid as ever. It's now probably better with the Echoing Oozes and stuff. So yeah. I'm not really going to look at the Hunter because, quite frankly, I think everyone has seen enough Hunter. I don't know if I've shown this off before, but this is my new version of Zoo. It's more Death Rattle focused and takes away some of the techie cards. So I took out, what was it, the Hellfire and the Loetheb and put in 2 Undertakers. This deck, again, I mean, it's just Zoo. I mean, it just wins games. There's not much else to say about it. And yeah, I mean, there's enough Death Rattle in the deck for the Undertakers to just do work. I mean, 2 1s for 1 aren't terrible anyways, even if you just buff them up once, it isn't terrible. Yeah, that deck's pretty good. So I've been doing some experimenting, literally just recently, because I had some quests to do, some games with the Priest. And a problem I was running into was I was getting beaten in the late game by a wide variety of decks. Warrior, a Rogue beat me in the late game, which is really surprising to me. Like, it wasn't even a Miracle Rogue, it was just a Rogue that somehow beat me in the late game. It was just like a weird control Rogue, and I think it was largely because I was getting bad draws, but essentially the conclusion I came to was, I didn't need the card draw from Azure Drakes, and I didn't need the, some of the other early game that I had, and I needed the extra Shadowwood Deaths. The extra Shadowwood Death. So at the moment, I added in Fugan and Starleg. I've taken out the Death Lords and put in Injured Blade Masters. I've also put in one Spellbreaker. This had been, for one game, a silence card, and then during the game, the other guy was actually running a Spellbreaker, and I'm like, you know, that's a good idea for this deck. This deck is low on 4s, as you can see, which is weird because 4s are generally a pretty crowded slot. I mean, the only 4s are the Arcanize and the Spellbreaker, which is just really odd for a deck. But this deck, I think, does need the silence in the current meta. I'm not convinced on the Fugan and Stalag. Sludge Belchers may be better in that position because it does need the taunt. And that's a problem that I'm running into now with it, is it just gets rushed down too easily. It actually dropped its first game ever to Zoo as well recently, which was just weird for me, because I'm like, this deck should always win against Zoo, right? Admittedly, he got a pretty freaking good hand, and this deck got a horrible hand. I'm talking like double Temple Enforcers in the starting hand bad. Still though, it's not as good against Zoo as it used to be, that's for sure, because, I mean, taking out the Holy Smites really does affect that matchup quite a bit. So yeah, as a mostly free-to-play player, I say mostly because I did pay for all of the Nax stuff, but every single other card that I have is completely won through packs that I've gotten through laddering and arenas. These are the decks that I'm running at the moment. They're a lot of fun. They're actually pretty good. I will say this ladder has been really much more difficult. So yeah, this is what I've got at the moment. This is a fun game. Alright, so I think that's enough of me rambling on. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.